As a teenager, I was extremely rebellious at school. I was always breaking the rules and getting into trouble. For the most part, the things I did weren't necessarily bad. They were the things a typical rebellious 8th grader would do. At my school, there was a detention system. If needed, a teacher or staff could give you a detention slip. I had gotten many of these in the 8th grade so far. This story in particular takes place in April. In the second to last class of the day, my teacher got really annoyed at me. I hadn't been doing my work all period, and I'd been ignoring his remarks. Understandably, at the end of class, he pulled me aside and gave me a detention slip. This teacher in particular had only given me 2 or 3 detention slips in the past, so I was a little pissed off. He told me that I had potential, but wasn't using it to my advantage. I smirked and took the slip. After the final class of the day, the bell rang. Instead of leaving the school to get on the bus, I walked to the detention room. When I opened the door, I noticed that there was no one inside except for the person who would be watching detention, Mr. Gavins. I handed him my slip and sat down in the far back. After about 15 minutes of silence, a voice came over the school intercom. "Lockdown. The school is officially under lockdown. This is not a drill." I looked up at Mr. Gavin's concerned face. He rushed over to lock the door and turn off the lights, then instructed me to go hide in a small closet area which was attached to the room. I hid in the closet behind some stacked boxes. Mr. Gavins locked the closet and sat down near me. 5 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Suddenly, we heard running footsteps down the hall, which then stopped at our door. The person started pounding on the door, then the pounding turned into kicking. I could hear the door structure giving way, and within just 45 seconds, the door had been bashed down. I actually started to tear up. I thought of my family and friends, and how I might never see them again. The person in the room began flipping desks and trashing the place. After 3 minutes of loud banging, silence filled the room. I looked at Mr. Gavins, and his face was pale. He whispered to me, "It's going to be okay, Dylan." Those 6 words haunt me to this day. Footsteps approached the closet door, and the person on the other side began breaking it down with a chair. Mr. Gavins rushed to the door to reinforce it, but he was too late. The intruder was in. I couldn't see what happened next, but I do remember what it sounded like. I heard a clash, followed by Mr. Gavins screaming out loud in pain, followed by more clashes and more screaming, then silence. The intruder walked further into the room, right towards where I was hiding. I crossed my fingers. I realized that if I wanted to live, I would have to fight back. I rammed into the intruder. This caught him off guard and made him drop his weapon, which looked like a large knife. He looked like he was in his 30s. He had long, disheveled black hair and was wearing all black. He looked me straight in the eye. Just as I tried reaching for the knife, the guy took the knife and stabbed me in my right eye. I screamed and tried to run away, but he tripped me and stomped on my ankle, fully breaking it. I don't remember what happened after that, because I was apparently knocked unconscious, but I did wake up in the hospital, feeling weird. There were 2 doctors by my side. I then found out something disturbing. I learned that I had been in a coma for 4 days. My left eye had been completely ripped out of its socket, leaving me half blind for the rest of my life. My nose had been severely damaged, and my leg would have to be amputated due to the severe injuries it accumulated. Apparently, after the intruder knocked me out, he ragefully began mutilating my body. Minutes later, police entered the room and shot him dead. The intruder was a former student who had gotten expelled for disturbing reasons. I went on to graduate from high school, and am now 26. I live with 1 eye, a deformed nose, and 1 leg. Life is difficult to say the least. It's really terrifying how something like this could happen. In 2017, during my last semester of high school, some friends and I decided to skip the pep rally for the girls' varsity basketball team making the playoffs for the first time. My last period of the day was theater tech. I was just taking it as a fine arts credit, and 2 friends of mine in the grade below me were in that class with me. We decided to skip the pep rally, leave school early, and go to the nearby Taco Bell like we did every day. However, administrators and security guards patrolled the parking lots to catch kids trying to skip, so we took a detour through the nature trail on campus in order to avoid them. Once on the nature trail, we came across this kid I hadn't seen before. He was on the skinnier side, with shaggy black hair, wearing baggy jeans and a plain white t-shirt. He was shorter than me, but the most notable thing about him was his general look of dishevelment. His hair was wild and full of leaves and twigs. His plain t-shirt was dirty, and the knees of his jeans were stained green and brown. He seemed like he had been crawling around in the nature trail. I remember wondering if he lived there for a split second. When we came upon him, we were walking parallel to the school and to the back of the parking lot, and he was coming directly towards us. I knew the trail well enough to know that there was a bend that led deep into the woods, and I figured he had come from there. He was out of breath, and he looked scared. My two friends said hi to him, hoping it would just be a quick hello, but it dragged out much longer than it should have. I couldn't help but notice how scared he looked, and how suspicious he seemed of us. He asked us what we were doing in the woods, and we told him we were skipping the pep rally. One of my friends asked, "What have you been doing out here? Camping?" Me and my other friend gave a nervous laugh, but the kid didn't crack a smile. He explained that he was dropped off at school that morning and was supposed to get on a bus to take him to DAEP. DAEP was the alternative school that kids who got suspended from our school went to. His plain outfit started to make sense now. It was the infamous uniform of the alternative school. He then explained that he didn't want to go to school, so when his mom dropped him off, he pretended like he would wait for the bus, then hide in the nature trail the full 8 hours of the school day. He was still acting really skittish, and without even looking at each other or speaking to each other, my friends and I could feel that something wasn't right, and that we were in some kind of danger. The kid kept looking around nervously, as if he was trying to see if someone might have followed us, or if we were alone in the woods. We hit him with the, "Alright man, well good luck. We're going to try to get to our cars and go home before the pep rally ends." When he heard the word cars, he perked up. He started walking with us towards the parking lot, continuing to talk. He became a lot more friendly, and asked if we could give him a ride home. We gave him some half-baked excuse why we couldn't, not expecting that he'd ask, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. He told us that people were going to start looking for him pretty soon, and that he was going to be in a lot of trouble. We told him that he'd probably be fine hiding in the nature trail, but he replied, "Nah man, you don't understand. I broke into a car at the fellowship." He pointed in the direction of the megachurch that had a parking lot that backed up to my school. From his waistband, he pulled out a handgun, and I felt sick to my stomach. I had never seen a gun in real life. At this point, I really felt in danger. Not just because he had produced a gun, more so that the entire interaction felt uneasy, and that the guy was already unsettling and desperate. One of my friends very cautiously told him that he should probably just ditch it and take off somewhere, and he just stood there, staring at us for an uncomfortable amount of time, with his eyes meeting each of ours. I broke the silence by saying that we wouldn't tell anyone, but that we really had to go before the pep rally ended. My other stupid friend, who had been virtually silent the entire time, spoke up and said, "Yeah, and it's best we're not around if they start looking for you with that," gesturing to the handgun. His eyes narrowed, and once more, he asked if one of us could take him home. This time, it felt more like a command. I've never been a super brave person, but in that moment, I don't know why, I just blurted out, "Nah man, I'm good." Again, there was an uncomfortable silence. Then, he asked, "Before you leave, do you guys want to see something?" My first friend was kind of a hothead, and although he was uncomfortable with the situation, he was not afraid of conflict, nor was I. My other friend, however, was not a fan of conflict, and would always try to de-escalate first. We all looked at each other, then me and my first friend kind of had an unspoken understanding like, if this is going to happen, if we have to run or fight, we might have to do it now. My other friend was visibly afraid. He asked, "What do you want to show us?" And before the kid could answer, my first friend said, "We don't want to see, we have to go." My first friend started briskly walking past the kid, and me and the other friend quickly followed. Within a few steps, we just started sprinting towards the parking lot. I looked back once after maybe running 50 steps away, and he was still standing there, watching us run. He put the gun back in his waistband, before taking a small adjacent trail deeper into the woods. By the time we made it to the parking lot, there were police everywhere. We were sweating, out of breath, and terrified. They found the kid in the next 10 minutes. Somehow, in the chaos, nobody saw us exit the nature trail into the parking lot, but since there were so many cops in the parking lot, we decided to just head back inside through another side door to find that the door was locked. That's when an administrator found us, brought us inside, and shoved us into a classroom where we were able to talk with others and find out what was going on. This is what we could piece together from what we learned. It turns out, that kid had skipped DAEP, hid in the nature trail, broke into a car at the church, then stole a semi-automatic shotgun and a handgun from the car. After stealing the guns, he texted his girlfriend and told him that he was about to do something really terrible, and that when she saw his name on the news, she should turn off the TV. He told her explicitly he was going to kill kids at school. She knew he was supposed to be in DAEP, and was so worried about the text that she contacted the police. DAEP went on lockdown until officers got a call from a guy at the church that 2 guns had been stolen from his car behind the school, and that's when they put 2 and 2 together and caught him hiding in the woods. This happened a little over 6 years ago, and it truly was the most terrifying day of my life. My brother was a junior in high school, and I was in 8th grade at the time. In the early fall of my first semester, I took a day off from school to shadow my brother at his high school. Having 2 siblings that also went there, I was pretty much expected to go there for high school as well. It was a Friday morning. My brother drove me to school with him for the day, where I had to report to the gym with all the other shadows to attend the orientation meeting. The meeting lasted for the entire first period, so we all split up to join our shadows for the second period. My brother had math, so I sat next to him by his desk and listened in on the class. I've never been much of a school person, so I was bored for most of the day. Sometime around 1 p.m., just after we had lunch, I was sitting with my brother in his sociology class. I had to use the bathroom, so I grabbed a hall pass and walked out. The sociology room was located on the 2nd floor, and the bathrooms were on the opposite side of the wing, so it was a fairly long walk, given that the hallways are pretty long. Once I reached the bathrooms, I walked in and sat in a stall, then started scrolling through Instagram on my phone. Maybe a couple minutes after sitting down, I heard an announcement over the PA system. "Attention, we are going into lockdown. This is not a drill. Teachers, please follow lockdown procedures accordingly." My heart was beating out of my chest, and I sat there in shock, completely unsure of what to do. Before I could even fully process the announcement I just heard, I heard the sound of fast-paced footsteps coming down the hallway. They continued getting louder, and before I knew it, they were inside the bathroom with me. I held my breath, trying to not move a muscle, listening to what was going on. The footsteps walked right past my stall, where I then heard the neighboring stall door close shut. I could see the person's black shoes beside me, and I listened as it sounded like they were rustling through something. Suddenly, a black backpack dropped on the floor, followed by the person unzipping it and rummaging around. Being alone in the bathroom as a shadow during a lockdown, I was about to ask the person next to me what I should do, but before I could even say anything, I watched a hand reach down and set the magazine to a pistol down on the floor. I was terrified. I couldn't move, speak, or think. All I could do was helplessly listen and watch from under the stall. Shortly after, I heard the dreaded sound of the pistol cocking back, and I knew I had to get out right away. Without giving it any thought, I slowly leaned forward, unlocked the door, stood up, and bolted out of there as fast as I could. I ran straight towards the staircase and down to the main level, where I started screaming and pounding on the main office door. The principal thankfully opened it up, let me in, and quickly shut it behind him. He led me to the back room where several teachers and secretaries were huddled around a desk, and I told them that the gunman was in the 2nd floor bathroom. The principal instantly relayed that information over to the police, and we spent the next hour and a half in complete silence, unaware as to what was happening. After what felt like an eternity, the police finally knocked on the door and notified us that the gunman had been detained, and that the building was clear. It turns out that he was a sophomore at the school, and he was found with hundreds of rounds of ammo, 3 pistols, and a knife in his backpack. Although it ended with a positive outcome, that day has always stuck with me. I hate thinking that I was in the same room with the person who potentially could have killed so many people, and I wonder if he even knew I was in the stall next to him. A lot of people have thanked me and commended me for my bravery, but I don't feel like that was the case. I did what any other kid would have done in that situation. I ran out of fear. I wasn't brave, nor did I do anything that is worth thanking. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but I'm just thankful that I was able to have the information relayed over to the police, which likely prevented a mass amount of people from being killed. Even though it was a freak incident and it could have happened anywhere, I ended up not attending that high school, mostly because it's an awful reminder of what could have ensued on that seemingly normal Friday afternoon.